I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, we've just won one battle in the fight for parental rights in public schools, but the war is still raging. Plus, two Commonsense school board members resigned from the Highline School District. We'll play what one of them had to say in front of the school board. And a Democratic state senator known for his dishonesty wants to spend millions of dollars propping up legacy media. Gee, wonder why. That and more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. Hello and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. I'm Brandi Kruse. We're going to start with a good news, bad news story. So parental rights has been an issue that we've been fighting a lot for. I mean, I'm not a parent. Nicole's not a parent. But I think this is primarily an issue of government overreach. And it's a common theme in states like Washington where they believe they know what's best for you. They believe they know what's best for your kids. They believe they can parent your kids better than you can. And we've seen what kind of parenting they do in our public school system. They're not focused on academic achievement, academic outcomes. They're not even focused on making sure that kids routinely show up to class. They're focused on identity politics, political indoctrination, social indoctrination, extreme gender ideology. And that is why there was so much support for Initiative 2081 last year. That's why around 500,000 Washingtonians signed that initiative to say, hey, we are the primary stakeholder in our children's lives. The school district, the public school district, which operates with our tax money, should not be hiding things from us as parents. My child should not be able to go to school, identify as a different name and gender, and you as a school keep that information from me. My child should not be able to go to school and get prescribed medications or be dealing with a mental health issue, and that information is kept private from me. That is what Initiative 2081 did, is it solidified a parental bill of rights. And to just put that stake in the ground and say, no, the government does not supersede my rights as a parent. The public school district does not have more rights to know what's going on in my child's life than I do. So you guys will know by now. I'm going to give a quick recap for those who might be new to the show or new to this issue. So Initiative 2081 is sent to the legislature. They felt like they had to pass it into law to avoid it going to the ballot, because if it went to the ballot, let's be honest, it was going to pass. So on a bipartisan basis, almost unanimously, Initiative 2081 became law. Almost immediately after it became law, what happened? The head of Washington's public school system, Chris said, I'm going to be the arbitrator of what's legal and not, and I don't think that aspects of this new law are legal. So no, Washington public schools will not be abiding by the Parental Bill of Rights. Yes, we will continue to hide medical information from parents. And he made this claim, again, as if he's the arbitrator of constitutionality. He made this claim that, okay, this is in violation of federal privacy rights for students, so we're going to continue to keep this critical health information from parents. And then there were lawsuits, of course, lawsuits that sought to get the entire Parental Bill of Rights thrown out. So that's sort of where we're at. I am happy to report that one of those lawsuits has now been thrown out. This ruling came down. There's a lot of fascinating aspects of this, but one of the most fascinating things is it was a King County judge that said that the challenge to Initiative 2081 and the Parental Bill of Rights law has no merit. So this came out, Judge Michael Scott, as Nicole noted, Michael Scott of The Office has found a new career as a King County Superior Court judge. The court concludes that there are no genuine issues of material fact in dispute as to the constitutionality of Initiative 2081, and concludes that the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment is denied in its entirety. This lawsuit was brought about by the Legal Counsel for Youth and Children versus the state of Washington and, of course, Let's Go Washington, the entity that ran the initiative. So a few things here. The state of Washington, with the help of outside counsel, has successfully defended Initiative 2081 in the first real test. I think this is a good thing. I think they're worthy of praise. Of course, if there's a law on the books, something passed by the legislature, an initiative, it falls to the Attorney General's office to defend the will of voters in a court of law. That was concerning to me. I was very concerned about these legal challenges. I questioned the incoming Attorney General, Nick Brown, about them. because not only was he not in favor of the initiatives, neither was Bob Ferguson, who's now our governor. So I had asked Nick Brown at the time, this was actually before the election, can we trust you to defend what will be legal challenges against the initiatives, considering you personally don't support them? And he said, absolutely. I will support them and my office will defend them to the best of our ability if and when they become law. And so this is an example of, okay, they were able to do that, but not without some outside help. So because there was so little trust that the state of Washington and Democratic politicians would defend the Parental Bill of Rights, our old friend Pete Serrano, who is with the Silent Majority Foundation, also had run unsuccessfully for Attorney General, they asked to be joined with the state of Washington in the defense of Initiative 2081. So they were, in this case, they sat side by side with the lawyers from the state of Washington to get this outcome. Now, I'm going to get into Pete. Pete is joining us in a moment. What happens from here, but this is a big win, and I just want to be clear about that. The Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, Superintendent Chris Rakedahl, who had said, oh, we're not implementing all of this. I think some of it is unconstitutional. This King County judge is saying, no, it's not. You have to implement the Parental Bill of Rights in its entirety. No, you cannot just decide to continue to keep information from parents. So as of today, the Parental Bill of Rights should be in full effect in every public school district in the state because of this ruling. As I mentioned, Pete Serrano and his team at the Silent Majority Foundation joined the Attorney General's office in its defense of the Parental Bill of Rights. Pete Serrano joins us now. Pete Serrano, welcome back to Undivided.
Brandi, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so you actually, Silent Majority Foundation is defending the Parental Bill of Rights side by side with the Attorney General's office, correct?
Yeah, it's ironic. 2 weeks ago, Friday the 14th, I was in court against the same attorneys who we sat side by side defending last Friday this Parents' Bill of Rights in King County. I guess the distinction was we were at the Supreme Court in Thurston, and we had to switch benches or something to get to King County. But yeah, it's a wild world where we're at least paired up. We'll call it that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the result is what we want it to be, but would you say that the Attorney General's office has been putting their full faith and effort into defending the Parental Rights Initiative?
I will say they have, and I want to give them credit where credit's due, because I think so everyone, just we'll do a quick time capsule. The Parents' Bill of Rights was an initiative. It passes through the initiative process, goes to the legislature, gets adopted as legislation last May, and then a bunch of the left groups, LCYC, which is all about children's rights and youth, protecting them, challenge this Parents' Bill of Rights, saying, no, you can't have 10-day access to our records. No, you can't have access to our mental and physiological treatments that are occurring on campus, right?
Yeah.
Because God forbid a parent knows what happens behind closed doors at a school. And so they make this challenge, and it's in King County Superior Court. Our concern as an organization, and I think generally the people who supported the bill were wondering, is Bob Ferguson, then Attorney General, going to put full faith and credit into defending this?
Because he didn't support the initiative, and neither did Nick Brown.
Yeah, he was very clear that he did not support it, and obviously Chris Reichdahl's gone off a handful of times about the impact of these limited youth. And so we saw we're granted what's called intervention status on behalf of Project 42, Jim Walsh, Informed Choice of Washington, One Washington, meaning these groups wanted us to co-defend 2081 and its subsequent law with the state of Washington, again, because we weren't sure, based on those very public statements. I think it was a press release and an op-ed or some sort of video that Bob Ferguson did saying he wasn't in support of it. And so, I will give the state again credit where it's due. They did a wonderful job, articulating why this bill was constitutional and why it doesn't violate or void other parts of the law. Unlike any other legislation where, you can modify the law. And it was like some of the arguments from the other groups were crazy. It was, well, the legislature didn't know what they were doing. And it's like, fast forward to 2025, we know they darn well knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother story for this.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify, you keep saying Project 42. I think you mean Let's Go Washington, right?
Yeah, I
No,
apologize.
that's
Yes,
okay.
well, let's go Washington.
Yeah. So
That's my bad.
So the challenge, and we'll get to what they're trying to do with it now, but Chris Reichtel had said, oh, this violates children's privacy rights and the federal law, and he had sent out a thing right after the Parental Bill of Rights went into effect that they just weren't going to follow aspects of it. Like that he was the arbiter basically of whether it was legal and constitutional. So what happens now? The court has denied that claim. I want to read really quickly. We just read it before we came on for the segment, but it says, having considered all papers filed in support and in opposition, the court concludes that there are no genuine issues of material fact in dispute as to the constitutionality of Initiative 2081. So what does that mean today for the public school system and its implementation of the Parental Bill of Rights?
So what it means as of yesterday, when this order was signed by Judge Scott and entered into the docket, that the Parents' Bill of Rights, as written in 2024, is 100% inact. So it's intact. Nothing is touched. If you recall, there was a temporary injunction stating, oh, the 10-day and a couple of mental health things, we're going to put a pause on implementation of those. But the entire bill, based on this ruling from Judge Scott in King County last week, based on this order, the case is entirely dismissed and the entire bill is back in action.
So that means that OSPI and what Chris Reichtel said about, oh, we're not going to, implement some of these medical, things for parents to know, that is done.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if Chris Reichdahl or your local school district were to say, oh, well, we don't have to follow this because of the injunction or for any other reason, because I'm Chris Reichdahl and I say so, seems to be his mantra. There would be, quite frankly, in my opinion, ample fodder for a lawsuit to recall the individual, because then they are, in fact, violating the law, which is currently entirely intact.
Yeah. Now, that is obviously all separate from the effort happening in Olympia right now to amend Initiative 2081 in the Parental Bill of Rights. There are two bills, matching bills, one going through the House, one going through the Senate, where they want to basically take a lot of the key provisions out when it comes to notifying parents of medical issues their kids are having, gender dysphoria, mental health issues, etc. So that would be a different fight for a different day, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I'm grateful I have the opportunity to talk about this today with you. What the viewers need to know is, yeah, right now, things are great. We've preserved it. The state's preserved the law. You have all of the authorities in the district has all obligations falling under 2081. However, and this is like all caps and bold, however, those two bills, I think it's 1286 in the House and 5181 in the Senate, are looking to gut these provisions, and we need to be ready to act swiftly. I talked with a couple of other media outlets, and I suggested, hey, someone organize a rally. I'd love to do it, Silent Majority Foundation, but we gotta, I'm in a suit because I just came from court. We've got stuff that we've got to handle, but if someone wants to organize a rally, and this is not a 200 to 300 person rally, tens of thousands or more walking on the Capitol, holding the signs, I'm a parent, I want my rights protected. We have to engage this session on a myriad of bills, but these two bills in particular. If you're a parent, grandparent, parent adjacent, I guess is what we'll call it, go have your voice be heard over the next 5 months.
Amen. All right, Pete Serrano, still fighting the good fight out there. Congratulations on this ruling. I'm glad you and the Attorney General's office were able to work together on this one, and thank you for giving them credit where credit is due, because Nick Brown promised us that he would defend all of this with all the might of the office, and so far so good. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
I'm gonna steal his phrase, parent adjacent, because we're parent adjacent. I think everyone's parent adjacent, because I want parents to have say over what's happening with their kids. That's a really reasonable thing. It's not a controversial opinion, and it's sick and twisted that after all of that effort, parental rights initiative signed into law, surviving lawsuits, totally constitutional as we speak today, Democrats in Olympia are trying to water down that bill, water down that law. The two, they're matching bills. The House version that attacks the parental rights law is 1296. The Senate version is 5181. You can today, right now, email your elected representatives, your elected senator in Olympia, and you can tell them that you are not in favor of House Bill 1296 and Senate Bill 5181. That as a parent, courts have now said that it's totally constitutional for you to expect that medical information related to your child at school is not going to be hidden from you. House Bill 1296, Senate Bill 5181. So we won a battle, but the war still rages on to protect parental rights, and we will be with you fighting every step of the way. All right, coming up next, a tearful resignation from a school board member in the Highline School District shows just how unhinged some of our schools have become, that they are pushing out well-intended, academic-focused school board members. First, if you are planning to sell your home, reach out to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com. Sellwithwes.com. Wes has been doing this for a long time. I mean, you can find, like I say this all the time, if you want to sell your home and you want to roll the dice with someone whose face you saw on a billboard or someone who your sister's dog walker's second cousin used to sell their home, go for it. But Wes Jones is battle-tested. Speaking of battles, battle-tested. He's been doing this for a long time. He's been through all the ups and downs in the market. And one of the consistent things we hear from undivided viewers and listeners who've used Wes to sell their home is transparency, honesty, communication. Always there to pick up the phone, always there with a text message, always there to keep you in the loop about what's going on with your home sale, to take some stress off of you. He can help you manage projects if he thinks you need some cosmetic upgrades to your home before it hits the market, which buyers kind of want right now. He can manage those projects for you. He can even help you pay for them up front through their Listing Boost concierge service. So he's got a lot of different services you're not going to find anywhere else. Sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com, a better way to sell your home. All right, this story breaks my heart. Heartbroken. And I kind of feel two ways about it. I want to go to the Highline School District, which is city of Burien. Burien News published this story. Highline directors Azeb Hagos and Melissa Petrini unexpectedly resign at the January 22nd meeting. So there was a school board meeting for the Highline District, and one of the members, Azeb Hagos, resigned via a letter, and they acknowledged it vaguely at the beginning of the meeting, and she obviously wasn't present there. And then at that same meeting, the second director, Melissa Petrini, spoke at length and announced that she would be joining Hagos in resigning from the school board. Now, what's sad about this is these are both these are the kind of school board members we want. These are both school board members who wanted the district to prioritize academics. Oh, gosh forbid. Who wanted to make sure that students were set up for success by making sure that in the interest of DEI or whatever it was, they weren't reducing or eliminating highly capable programs, etc. These are exactly the kind of school board members you want. And the Highline School District lost two of them in a single night. Now, one of them might sound familiar to you, Melissa Petrini, because we've had her on the show before. In fact, we had Melissa Petrini on the show when she was running for Highline School Board not long ago. And we talked with her at length about some of her concerns, which are very similar to ours, very similar to a lot of yours, about what's happening in too many of our school districts. This focus on political and social indoctrination, less of a focus on academics, the obsession with DEI, whatever it was. And we were overjoyed when Melissa Petrini, who has 6 kids, like that's what I want. I want school board members with 6 kids who has an obsessive focus on making sure that her kids and other kids are successful. We were overjoyed that she won her seat. Well, Melissa Petrini went into that environment and apparently had enough. Could not do the job that she wanted to do when she was elected to the school board. She issued her tearful resignation. It's pretty long. I'm going to play most of it because it's really powerful. And I am so glad that she said this in front of other school board members who needed to hear it. Here it is.
My experience has also been a discouraging and a frustrating one. There are many things that frustrate me. When it comes to academics, I worry about how much we are so hyper-focused and double down on things that have not produced the promised outcomes of increased academic performance in all our students. I hear from teachers again and again that they're not able to teach to the levels that they should be, as we have 50% of our kids 3 grades below. I'm saddened as we claim to close opportunity gaps, and at times it comes by way of eliminating opportunities altogether that had the greatest impact. Or like watering things down like high-cap programs, pushing away and distancing a 20-year-plus relationship with our robotics clubs and programs, not investing more in reading programs and supports that have proven efficacy and several years' worth of positive growth that would lead to all areas of academics being lifted and behavioral issues would be diminished. I know Highland prides itself on being a place where we strive to make sure everyone feels like they belong. However, I have not felt that myself, along with many others who have shared their stories and experiences, and when relayed, they are turned away and disregarded. I struggle with the constant stifling of open and honest board discussions, or the avoidance and lack of communication from leadership, undermining efforts and actions, mistrust in independent decision-making, or the hostile and toxic and undignified attacks, both over the dais and behind the scenes. I feel my words have often been twisted and have had bad and nefarious intentions attached and implied. I've also heard of defamatory reports of those in leadership and on this board, calling me names, spreading rumors and lies, while telling others not to work with me. Such examples: a white supremacist, a Moms for Liberty, a Christianized fascist, a racist, a xenophobe, pretty much all the phobes at this point, in places of their work or community, and because I ask questions. There's also reports from teachers telling me that they were told by their union teamsters via the district that I was dangerous and would hurt children, a narrative that has been corroborated by several teachers at this point. While also telling others not to work with me, not to answer my questions. Among the many, many other ridiculous things I have heard, down to someone video recording myself and another board member at an airport after a conference. And I know I signed up for this scrutiny and I accept it, but a culture of belonging doesn't quite fit the experience I've had of pure contempt. I have worries about the way our community and parents have been treated, while creating a wedge of distrust between parents, children, and teachers, pushing identity over integrity, orientation over honesty, diversity over dignity, equity over equality, and political activism over academics. I have seen it all. And I've complained, and I've cautioned, and I have strived to encourage dialogue and discussion and understanding. But I have been met with disdain, distrust, and distance. Most concerning, though, is the lack of accountability for actions and inactions when clear violations have been brought to the attention. I've complained of several state and now proven federal violations regarding student and parent information and communication not handled appropriately, among other things. As I've strived to come to the table and advocate for all sides, bringing balance and perspectives that should help shape what families hope to see their school district reflect, I feel that independent voices like mine are not valued. They're minimized and discriminated against. And because I see no friendly path forward, I am also officially resigning as of this moment, which brings me much sadness.
Here's the thing. I applaud her for saying everything that she said. I'm shocked they let her sit there and continue when she's exposing them for their obsession with DEI, their obsession with equity, for labeling her a white supremacist, whatever they call Moms Against Liberty, a terror group or whatever it is. I agree with everything she said. I'm glad she said it. The only thing I don't agree with is that she resigned at the end. And I'll just be honest about it. And I've been in contact with Melissa, and I haven't really shared that sentiment with her. But, we need people like her in these school boards. And surely, parents like her who run for these positions know that they are going to have a difficult task ahead when it comes to pushing back and trying to undo some of the insanity that's afoot in some of these districts. And so you got to steel yourself for that. And I don't know the extent of everything she's been through behind the scenes. And I'm not going to pass judgment upon anyone who decides, like, look, this is just not, there's no place to go from here. This isn't the best interest of me or my family or whatever it is. But absolutely, we need people to stay in those positions and continue to fight for as long as they possibly can. I hope that losing 2 school board members in a single night will wake the Highline School District up. I don't have a lot of faith in that. They're probably behind the scenes like, thank God, I'm glad we scared them away, right? But as we need more parents who are willing to go in there and fight the good fight and do what they can, because change is made at a local level. And I think some of the change we really need in Washington state is going to happen in these school boards and with individual parents. So I thank Melissa for being willing to run, for being willing to sit there and tell them everything that they needed to hear. I wish she could have fought for longer, but we'll see who takes those school board positions moving forward. But I had to play that clip for you. All right. It was yesterday, right, where I ditched Unbelievable? How dare I? Oh my gosh. So how about we do this today? How about we have a double dose of Unbelievable, starting with a story about my favorite state senator, Mark Elias. Look, when you lie to manipulate people, then that changes how I feel about you. And for State Senator Mark Elias, I will never forgive him for lying to manipulate voters about the Climate Commitment Act. Bottom line. He specifically targeted his lies toward purple districts where they would need to swing voters when the initiative to repeal the CCA went to the ballot. He repeatedly and shamelessly lied, and I'll never forgive him for that. So he is just dishonest in my eyes, and he hasn't done anything to earn shedding that label. And so I'll call him the most dishonest Democrat in Olympia, behind maybe Bob Ferguson. So interesting that one of the most dishonest Democrats in Olympia is pushing a bill right now to try to bail out legacy media. Gee, why would he want to do that? Why would he want to, at a time when platforms like ours are soaring and legacy media is sinking? Why would he want to bail them out? Nicole, do you have any ideas?
Gosh, I don't
could
know.
It be that, like, they're biased in his favor, and bailing them out will make him look better, and they don't call him on any of his bull. So that's
it could.
So, I don't want to jump to conclusions.
That's a jump. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Brandi.
know. But he is trying to not just bail them out, to the tune of $20 million. Senator Mark Elias has a bill that would pump, this from the Linwood Times, $20 million into journalism statewide. It says the bipartisan bill. Is this from the Linwood Times or from the Everett Herald?
Oh.
It's from the Everett Herald, right? Sorry. I thought so. Linwood Times got a free byline. This is from the Everett Herald. Our bad. Edmonds, as we're talking about journalism, we're journalisming hard today. From the Everett Herald, Edmonds lawmakers' bill would pump $20 million into journalism statewide, and it would do that by taxing high-income tech companies as part of a workforce development task. Because media is failing. You have to tax tech companies more to prop up failing legacy media. He told the Everett Herald, local journalism is the backbone of an informed, engaged public. This bill ensures that local news organizations, particularly those serving underrepresented communities, have the support they need to continue their vital work. We already have these taxpayer-funded journalism fellowships at the state level, where literally your tax money is going to put these has put these journalism fellows in newsrooms across the state, 4 of them that are now covering the very lawmakers who helped ensure that their salaries are paid. I'm sure they're going to do a bang-up job. So Democrats in Washington state are already funding local news, literally state-funded media. And now Mark Elias wants to throw another $20 million at propping up failing newsrooms. You think that unDivided is going to get any of that $20 million? Not that we'd ask for it. Of course not. You think that any media entity that has been critical of Democratic politicians is going to see a dime of that money? Of course not. It's going to be only the approved media entities who have given proper deference to our overlords, like the Seattle Times, like the Everett Herald, you name it, TV stations, whatever it is. And they'll have no shame taking this money from the government. These newspapers across the state, I already told, we would not take one dime if they offered tax breaks to every media organization in the state today, which we pay taxes as a media entity. We are a media organization under the eyes of the law in Washington state. If they offered it today, we would say no. And it's because in our eyes, it's a direct conflict of interest to take money from the government, which is from the taxpayers, that we're being critical of, that we're supposed to hold accountable. Hold the powerful accountable. Can you hold the powerful accountable when they're paying your salaries? When they're keeping your newsroom, your newspaper from going under? I don't think so. You've already shown that you can't hold them accountable even when they're not sending you money. So you think that's going to change now? Of course not. And of course it's dishonest Mark Elias, who these news entities, none of the news entities who are going to benefit from this, held Mark Elias accountable for any of the lies that he told about the Climate Commitment Act. And now it's, call it a bribe. Now they're going to continue, instead of under the table, over the table. Now they're going to continue to not hold him accountable because he's helping prop them up. And I've already said this. Now, in this case, this isn't tax money. It's money that you're going to take from tech companies. It's not your taxpayer funds, though, like it is with the journalism fellows. But as I've said all along, there's already a way for taxpayers to support and prop up local newsrooms. Subscribing to them. If taxpayers choose, individual taxpayers, to prop up legacy newsrooms, they can do that right now by subscribing to their content, by supporting their advertisers. But because they're not choosing to do that, the state is taking their money by force and putting it out to approved newsrooms that are doing fair reporting. And now Mark Elias wants to amp that up. Yeah, when a dishonest politician is trying to give your newsroom more money, call me crazy, but I don't trust that.
Really quick, there was we got a comment. Someone said that in the White House press briefing today, they said that they were going to open up the press room to podcasters and social media influencers, so we can apply to be an official White House podcast.
Which is interesting, and we're going to talk more about this, I think, next week. Mm-hmm. There is a game afoot behind the scenes in Washington state. I'm going to clue you guys in on this in case you're not familiar. So this had been the case in Washington, D.C. I'm really glad you brought that up, and whoever commented brought that up. Yeah. So it had been the access to the president and the presidential briefings was controlled by the White House press corps. Mm-hmm. And they determined whether you got a pass or you didn't get a pass, whether you were one of them or you weren't. And you'll remember in the first Trump administration, there were some kind of like conservative new media outlets who they wouldn't give a pass to, so Donald Trump let them come in, but they had to stand in the back. Right. Remember that? So the same thing happens in Washington state. The mainstream news press corps in Olympia, which is basically 3 people now, mm-hmm. they determine and are determining now who gets legitimate passes to kind of roam freely, if you will, throughout the Capitol, mm-hmm. to go in the wings, to watch the votes, to go to the press conferences. They control those passes. Well, do you think that they're being fair in the way that they distribute those passes? Do you think those passes are going to go to conservative-leaning outlets, independent outlets, podcasters, bloggers, new media? Well, so far, behind the scenes, there's a fight going on because they're being very judicious in who those passes go to. And so I feel like we'll be in a better position next week to talk about that fight. But you have legacy media controlling the reins of the passes to our elected officials at a time when legacy media is failing. The press corps in Olympia used to be like 20. And now it's just a couple who cover Olympia full time. So there are not enough journalists. If you only give passes to the press corps in Olympia, there's not enough journalists there to do enough stories, to go out to enough people to hold our politicians accountable. This is a new age we're living in. New media is dominating old media. But if they legitimize us, if they give us and grant us passes, that hurts their business. That hastens their decline. So you think they're going to do that without a legal battle? Pfft, you're fooling yourself. So this is happening as we speak behind the scenes. And look, I get it. I get it. Do I expect Bob Ferguson to let me into a press conference in his office? Probably not. Now, should he have to? I think that that's a legitimate debate to have. Again, we're a media entity. All we do is disseminate information to the public. Yes, it has our opinion, but there are a ton of opinion outlets in the state. The Seattle Times has an opinion wing. Do you think if Kate Riley today with the Seattle Times editorial board wanted to attend a press conference with Bob Ferguson, he'd say no to the editorial team that endorsed his campaign? Of course not. They'd let him in. So where do you draw a line? And again, it's a legitimate conversation to have. Where do you draw a line? Because I don't want it to be a free-for-all. I don't want it to be any Tom, Dick, and Harry that has a cell phone and posts to X can then go into a press conference, because the legitimate journalists, and I use that phrase much more, I have a much wider reach, but the people who are there who actually have a platform that they use consistently to disseminate information, that makes it much more difficult for them to do their jobs. But someone like Jonathan Cho,
Right.
by any stretch, like, yeah, Jonathan Cho, he's so aggressive, but he spends all day, every day, covering the news. That's what he does for a living. But because he's employed by a conservative think tank, that is something that in the eyes of, the press corps in Olympia precludes him. So this battle is raging behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's wild. I'm not saying there's not some merit to having a discussion. I'm not saying that this isn't a difficult line to draw. It is. But as legacy media fails, and as the number of people covering politics in the state dwindles down to just a handful, the politicians love that. That's the best thing that could ever happen to them. And so they're going to do everything they can to keep new media away as long as possible. And it's going to be up to us, to you, to advocate, to have new media voices have a seat at the table, have a pass to get in the room. The Trump administration is doing it because, frankly, now I'd have a problem, by the way, if the Trump administration wanted to kick out old media, wanted to take access away from CNN, MSNBC, because then they're making it political. They're making it about perceived political bias. But if all they're doing is adding in to the existing White House press pool, podcasters, new media.
You could also or have standards, and if they meet the standards, either mainstream media or
but what are the
podcasts
standards?
or whatever. But that's what I mean. That's what the discussion's about, right?
Yeah. What
that's
is
how
the
you have
standard?
to come up with the standard.
Because if the standard is you have to be factual,
it can't even be you have a following, because the followings are they can be created. You can create a following and nonsense.
It has to be a legitimate standard, and it can't have anything to do with perceived bias, because then you're letting the government control basically who gets access. I mean, for instance, we are more quick to correct a mistake than the Seattle Times, than King 5. I mean, you could have a story. I mean, we did that story on Cairo 7 that they copy pasted a press release from the state, I think it was the Attorney General's office under Bob Ferguson, almost word for word, like 99% verbatim.
0.9. It was like one word. It was
like they changed a couple words. And we pointed it out, and they, to the best of my knowledge, never took it down, never corrected it. Like, first of all, we would never do that in the first place, but we'd certainly be mortified if people found out. We'd at least have, the shame to correct it. We are more willing to correct an error. And so it is a fascinating conversation. There's a lot of depth to the conversation, but I don't want the government dictating, and I certainly don't want failed legacy media dictating whether new media gets a seat at the table.
And by the way,
and I don't think you guys do either. What?
I fixed it.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Yeah. See? Hey, what did I say?
I know.
We are very
quick
willing
to fix.
to correct a mistake, even honest mistakes. Now imagine dishonest ones. Well, we don't make dishonest mistakes.
That's right.
We don't intentionally make mistakes ever. I don't think.
Thank you, Dano, for that comment. That was who it was, Dano.
Yeah, just a fascinating thing. All right. In a double dose of unbelievable today, even in King County, the prosecutor in the most progressive county in the state realizes that when it comes to how we handle gun crimes and juvenile offenders, our state has gone woefully off track. All right, so Como News did a story with Lisa Mannion, who's the King County prosecutor, and she's pointing out that, look, when it comes to trying to deal with these young, let's call them what they are, gang members, who are committing crimes with guns, our state law and really some of the policies around criminal justice reform have made it very, very difficult to either dissuade that behavior, prevent that behavior, or hold young people accountable for that behavior. Here's a clip from Como News.
If we had intervened the first time those young people had carried guns, could we have applied some meaningful interventions that would have saved future heartache? If you're a juvenile and you are caught carrying a firearm, the very first time, the most you will see is 30 days in detention at the local level.
What happens about the second time?
The most you will receive is 30 days at the local level.
Third time?
30 days at the local level.
Fourth time?
30 days at the local level.
Fifth time?
You might then be eligible for juvenile rehabilitation for a longer sentence.
That's nuts. That's nuts. As the law stands now, this is from Como News, Mannion says it takes 5 convictions before a youth offender gets the kind of intervention and services that, frankly, that everybody says they want. Oh, we need to intervene. We need to intervene. You're letting them have 5 gun-related offenses before you have any sort of meaningful intervention? Mannion told Como it doesn't make sense to wait for a young person to have 5 illegal gun possession convictions before they get the effective intervention. That approach is dangerous. She said each time a teen picks up a gun, it's a potentially deadly situation for themselves and others. Yeah, and who are teens killing with those guns? Teens. The one who shoots today is the one who gets shot tomorrow. And so you have all this waxing poetic from Democrats about, oh, you know, we need criminal justice reform. We cannot throw these young people in prison. We need to rehabilitate them. But now come to find out, they're not rehabilitating them either. They're not offering them intervention either. So they're literally doing nothing. They're not holding them accountable in a court of law in a criminal capacity because they're saying, oh, they can't do that. That's mean. But they're also not doing anything to make sure they don't do it again. These people are a joke. The whole thing is a farce. They just don't want criminals to be held accountable for anything, especially if their skin isn't white. Then it's all the system did it to them. But again, we know this is all part of a broader conspiracy to make our streets so unsafe that you go crawling to the government for help. We talk about it all the time. But I would just say this, so that's going on. What did we talk about earlier yesterday and the week before? House Bill 1178. So as all this is going on, inarguably, homicides have doubled over 12 years. Shots fired are up. Youth gang violence is up. And they're pushing this bill, House Bill 1178, which we had the bill sponsor, Representative Roger Goodman, on the show to try to defend it, which he did very, very poorly. House Bill 1178, which literally, the goal of it is to reduce punishments for people who use guns to commit crime and also to reduce punishments for gang members. Here's a clip of what the bill would do.
Turning to the bill before you, 2 sentencing enhancements are eliminated. The enhancement for certain controlled substances violations committed in protected zones, and the enhancement for involving a minor in a criminal street gang-related felony. Mandatory stacking is eliminated for firearms and deadly weapons enhancements, and enhancements for controlled substances violations related to manufacture of methamphetamine in the presence of a minor. The following sentencing enhancements are eligible for partial confinement and earned early release, including those for firearms and deadly weapons, impaired driving, and sexual motivation.
Like, why do we even bother? At what point do we just quit? It's just crazy. Even in King County, the prosecutor is saying the way we are hands-off with gun crimes for juveniles is very dangerous, and it's putting their lives and the lives of other juveniles at risk. Meanwhile, the legislature Democrats are like, hold my beer, because we're going to reduce punishment for gun offenders, and we're going to reduce punishments for adult gang members who recruit these juvenile gang members to commit these crimes on their behalf. They don't care at all. They don't care how many young black men die with a bullet in their body. Genuinely. I am willing to say Democrats in Olympia want more young black men to be shot and killed. That has to be the goal. I can't think of any other goal. Democrats in Olympia are actively hoping and trying for more young black men to die in shootings. Take that to the bank. That's what they want. So let's call it what it is, and let's say that. Democrats are pro-gun and gang violence. Democrats are pro-shooting. Democrats are pro-homicide. 1178 doesn't leave us any other option. to believe anything else. All right, I have told you guys time and time again to take the First Mark Challenge, firstmarkinsurance.com, firstmarkinsurance.com. If you've been listening to our ads for First Mark for 2+ years now, and you haven't taken the First Mark Challenge, why? You might say, well, Brandi, I'm really happy with my insurance. I've got a local guy, insurance broker, and he's got the very best insurance for me. Does he, though? Does he? You won't know unless you take the First Mark Challenge. You know how many people have told me, I wish I had taken the First Mark Challenge sooner. I shouldn't have waited. Now I'm saving $1,000 a year, a few $100s a month. And the worst thing that could happen is you set aside like an hour of your time, you take the First Mark Challenge, and they come back and tell you, actually, you do have good insurance. And that's not even so bad either, because then you can pat yourself on the back and send me an email and say, I told you so, Brandi. My insurance was already great. First Mark Challenge couldn't beat it. And that's fine. Firstmarkinsurance.com, firstmarkinsurance.com. And the very best part is they work for you, not the insurance companies. So give them a chance, take the First Mark Challenge, see if they can't save you money on your insurance today. We can all use, have you seen the price of eggs? We're going to talk about that in a segment coming up. Actually, let's just talk about it now. Is that okay?
Sure.
Because then my segue works out for my ad.
Okay.
We could all save a little money. Because have you seen the price of eggs? I mean, honest to God. So we talked about this on the show the other day, right? I used to just do the egg whites. I do like one whole egg and then a couple egg whites. And I get it. That's kind of wasteful because I'd get rid of the egg yolks. Maybe I should give them to my dogs or something like that. But now I don't do it anymore because it's like eggs are like $12.99 a dozen. And so you can't get rid of those. That's like literally liquid gold. So anyway, this whole egg thing is ridiculous. So egg prices are high. Yeah, they're really high. But there is this like automatic narrative that everyone on the left started pushing all at once, which is egg prices are high and it's Donald Trump's fault. Even his second day in office, which was his first full day in office, the disingenuous left-wing media and media personalities were like, oh, Donald Trump in Congress. Oh, look at egg prices. I thought Donald Trump was going to get egg prices down, get grocery prices down. I mean, it's obviously ridiculous. But they all did it at once. Even Hakeem Jeffries, which I thought he was intelligent. This is like a couple days after Trump took office. Wait, the price of eggs and the cost of living was supposed to go down, not up. I mean, how can you live with yourself being so disingenuous? Brian Krasenstein, mouthpiece of the left. Thank you, Trump. $13 carton of eggs. What a deal. Making America great again. Justin Wolfers, who we're supposed to believe is an economist. The folks obsessively posting about egg prices the past few years have gone strangely quiet, just as egg prices hit an all-time high, literally 2 days after Trump took office. So you guys are smart enough to realize that's just stupid. Donald Trump wouldn't be able to do anything in the first few days in office about egg prices. And it's also, can we play this cut from Elizabeth Warren first?
Yes.
You have that? It's also actually offensive because here you had the entire 2024 campaign a lot of it was about inflation, about the prices for families. And what did Democrats do that entire time? Well, they tried to downplay it. They tried to distance, first of all, they tried to act like it wasn't a big deal. And then they tried to distance the price of things as far as they could from Biden and from Harris. So they did that the entire time, including Elizabeth Warren. But 2 days into the Trump administration, here's Elizabeth Warren.
Prices are going up, price of eggs. $3.65 last November. The latest I've seen is $4.25. So there's a lot he could do. I hope he does it. But if he doesn't, then it is our job to hold him accountable. And right now it's about focus. You know, it's just you got one of the words quoted in there. He kept using the words immediately. I will do this immediately when he ran. He said on day one. And it's not only that he hasn't moved the needle, it's that he hasn't even indicated he knows where the needle is or cares very much. And I think that's the part we have to keep bearing down on. His failure to even try to move in the direction of lowering costs is a betrayal of the American people.
It's been a couple days. That's
they're
the
literally
definition
showing
of bad faith.
Video of him signing executive orders that will probably eventually do this.
Which we'll talk about in a moment, because there are executive orders he signed with this goal in mind. But they spend 4 years making it worse. Like it didn't raise up, and she was talking about national average prices. They're much higher here on the West Coast. It didn't get that bad overnight. It got that bad slowly over time during the Biden administration, especially, and it's not just eggs, it's fuel, it's cost of groceries. And the amount of gaslighting they did of the American people. And now shame on Donald Trump for not caring more about grocery prices. It's almost more than one could tolerate. And it's not just like political partisan hacks. Margaret Brennan, who I think is usually pretty reasonable and even keeled, but for some reason...
I don't think you can say that anymore.
I know she did this unhinged interview with J.D. Vance. We played a clip of it on something else yesterday. But the cost of, breakfast food came up. And she's just following right in line with this Democratic talking point.
Things you experience at the grocery store, what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course. of course.
Those things, when do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, but Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel's way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers, and that is what we're trying to fight for.
It's just insane. And obviously, I mean, again, that's why I laugh at that the economist who's talking about it. The policies of yesterday impact the price of eggs today. And so you have policies that are in place, and he talks about fuel. The cost of fuel, the lack of energy independence. Of course, that's one of the things that's been driving up not only nationally prices at the grocery store, but we talked about it in our state as well. The increased costs you see at the gas pump as a result of the Climate Commitment Act. So not only you pay higher prices at the pump in Washington state, but you also pay higher prices for anything that has to travel to its destination via gas. It's just basics, right? It's common sense. Cairo 7 had actually, I thought, a fairly fair story. I don't know if it might have been from the Associated Press, though, but they posted it today. Yeah, it's an Associated Press story. Bird flu is forcing, the headline, egg prices are soaring. Don't expect that to change anytime soon. Bird flu is forcing farmers to slaughter millions of chickens a month, which I think that's just a made-up grift.
Agreed.
Pushing U.S. egg prices to more than double their cost in the summer of 2023, and it appears there may be no relief in sight, given the surge in demand as Easter approaches. The average price per dozen nationwide hit $4.15 in December, which just shows you how much higher we are here for food prices. That's not quite as high as the $4.82 record set 2 years ago during the Biden administration, but the Agriculture Department predicts prices are going to soar another 20% this year. Shoppers in some parts of the country are already paying more than double the average price, or worse, finding empty shelves in their local grocery stores. Organic and cage-free varieties are even more expensive. So yeah, there's a lot of factors at play here. Donald Trump's not going to be able to solve it overnight, but as J.D. Vance said, trying to make us energy independent, looking at long-term solutions to bring the price of goods down. But who's being disingenuous by who's talking about today Donald Trump being responsible for high egg prices. I did ask you guys, though. It's a fair question. At what point is he responsible? How long does he get, essentially, to try to improve the situation before he bears some of the responsibility for it? I asked that of subscribers on Patreon, Locals, and X. Essentially, how long until egg prices are Trump's fault? I said, do you blame him now? Is it 6 months, or is it a year plus that he gets? How much grace do you give him, Nicole?
Well, eggs specifically, I think, have a lot to do with this whole bird flu, whatever it is.
And the rules, like in California, about cage-free. And
yeah, but those were all in place before. But now farmers are killing, just millions of chickens because one chicken gets sick. And so I think that somebody needs to get in there and see what's going on there, because I don't know if I don't know, tinfoil hat me about that. But because that was what they wanted to be the next pandemic, I think. But anyway, I'm going to say 6 months.
6 months.
It's probably going to take 2 years, but I'm going to say we'll start seeing it go down in 6 months, because I think immediately we're going to start drilling. I think there's going to be a lot of independence really quick.
Well, I think it's one of those things where you got to take your political cap off and ask yourself, am I being morally consistent, right? Because if the situation was reversed and Donald Trump had been the president and they soared, which wouldn't have happened, and then Joe Biden came in, how long would we give a Joe Biden? How long would we give a Joe Biden? Would you give him 6 months? Would you give him the grace of a year plus? So you kind of have to ask yourself,
I would give him more
than
a week, that's for sure.
I would give him more than 1 day. Let's see. I always love these responses. Memendel 77, not worried about egg prices. My backyard fluffy butts are very spoiled, and in return, so am I. 12 eggs a day.
Well,
post your address.
It's a costly, I think,
have chickens?
I've heard that it's kind of costly to have chickens to feed and clean and all the things.
Obviously. Oh, but they're so cute.
But they are.
Let me see. Mark says Trump is to blame for the bird flu. Ollie Rhodey, our egg prices will remain high due to our state's cage-free egg law. Truck driver Ken said my poll was a dumb question. The fact that the avian flu forces farmers to kill their entire flock to help limit the spread of the flu is found on poultry farm. The Associated Press reported, and more than 145 million chickens and other birds have been killed since the outbreak began. This is the reason why. Plus, have you looked at the price of a chicken? Of chicken. I was at Safeway on Friday and chicken breast was $5.99 a pound. No one is talking about the cost of chicken going up. Why? It didn't start under Trump, so I don't think he should be blamed at all. However, if he can't help bring the price down in a year time, then maybe. I'm sure Dems will blame him now, though, as they are. Everything is his fault. Most people are saying a year plus. Kathleen Brosey, the gas tax, increasing insurance rates, and higher minimum wage, especially in King County, have increased the cost of transporting groceries. Good point on the minimum wage. And the effect of the bird flu and egg prices has egg prices soaring. They will come down eventually, but how much? Don't forget about the hidden costs of shoplifting. Perfect storm. Oh, that's why we're so screwed this state. Like, look, I'll continue to buy my Wilcox eggs because I have just a commitment to them because I saw the birds and they're so cute and happy in the shadow of Mount Rainier, just frolicking about and just squirting out little eggs. But they are expensive right now. It's like $10.99 or something at QFC. I was like, I'm just a podcaster, people. I can't buy $10.99 eggs. All right. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, that's right. We're in national news. I do want to talk a little bit about the... Ow, that hurt. I really hit myself in the chest really hard.
Sounded like
it. And I bruise easy. Oh, a little snort for the snort jar. Okay, I got to talk about the immigration issue. It's going to dominate just everything. But the border crossings are like almost at zero. It's like a ghost town at the southern border right now. And I was joking on X. Wow, turns out all we had to do is just try. All we had to do is just try to stop the flow of illegal immigrants, aliens, cartel, drugs into our country. I mean, they've got the Marines out there. They've got people fortifying the border. Turning Point USA's Frontline sent someone down. Here's a report.
I am here in El Paso, Texas, talking to the military and the Border Patrol. I was just told by an agent that crossings here have been eerily quiet in the El Paso area here in Texas. He said almost nothing. Very little crossings happening now since Trump was inaugurated. I've been looking at how the military's updating things. They have been adding razor wire all along, kind of updating the infrastructure, patching holes in fencing and walls that have been cut through. Things are getting locked down in El Paso, and crossings are slow to nil.
All we had to do was try. I mean, he's trying
or
hard,
just tell them,
right?
Please don't come.
Well, that's the thing. It's a combination of messaging. Because if you're someone who's going to have to pay a mule or a cartel member to smuggle you across, and you're seeing the images of like the new DHS Secretary Kristi Noem literally out with ICE agents in New York doing raids in full gear. If you're seeing the images of illegal aliens shackled heading on the back of a military plane to be deported to their home country, you think that you're going to make that dangerous journey and pay all that money to the cartel for a less likely chance of success? Of course not. So the messaging matters as much as the actions matter, but look at what strength does at the southern border. And don't get me wrong, I think there's going to be violence ahead. I hate to say that. We already saw there was an example at the border of cartel exchanging gunfire. I think it was with the military. No one was hurt, thankfully. But the Mexican drug cartel in particular are incredibly violent and incredibly dangerous, as you know, and they make billions of dollars off the trafficking of firearms, fentanyl, and other things. So they're not just going to lay down and take it. They are coming up with new ways to try to get people and product across the southern border. And they will not hesitate to take the lives of Border Patrol agents, to take the lives of members of the military. That's why you see them out there so heavily armed in their full gear. So I'm worried about that. I have a lot of concerns about that. But those people sign up to protect their nation. For the first time in a long time, they're being given an opportunity to do just that. But I definitely am concerned about the potential for violence at the southern border. You know, and then here's Bob Ferguson just pissing me right off in the media. Again, they go hand in hand. Whatever the Democrats say, the media says. Whatever the media says, Democrats say. Their messaging is inextricably linked. So Bob Ferguson, who ran as a public safety candidate, and rather than come out yesterday and say, look, you know, I'm all in favor of ICE rounding up sex predators, child sex predators from Seattle. criminals in Seattle. No, he has to come out and say, oh my gosh, Washington State is going to stand by these immigrant families who are going to be torn apart by these inhumane policies. And the Seattle Times just regurgitates it. So he had retweeted the Seattle Times, and look at the parody in the messaging. So Bob Ferguson says, I want to be clear about the impacts of President Trump's mass deportations. It means ripping families apart. It means kids losing their parents. It means businesses losing their workers. It means communities being significantly altered. Here's the Seattle Times headline. Governor Bob Ferguson announced a state rapid response team Monday to try to aid families targeted for deportation by the Trump administration. Where have you seen families targeted for deportation? Where? Give me one example of families targeted for deportation. Now look, that child predator they rounded up in Seattle, maybe he had a family, but are we really concerned about his kids being separated from him when he's a child predator? I'm not. There are no examples, none, not one, of families being targeted for deportation. Now, there are collateral. If you show up and you're trying to, as ICE, arrest an illegal alien who's committed crimes in this country and their entire family is here illegally, as Tom Homan said, they can be deported together. So if there's any separation, that's a choice. If there's any separation, that's a choice. If you have kids who are here illegally and you get deported as a parent who came here illegally, criminal illegal alien, and you decide to leave your kids behind, or like your family members protect your kids and hide your, that's a choice, right? That's the choice you made. And you made a choice by coming into the country illegally. So the idea that Trump, that the Seattle Times says, because they regurgitate anything Bob Ferguson says, that Trump is out there right now as we speak, ICE is actively targeting families for deportation, is a lie. That is just a lie. We can and should talk about this issue in a nuanced manner. I've said on this show, you guys, in our show poll last week, I asked you about ICE deportations around schools, for instance, and you were, by and large, very opposed to it. You can have humanity in the way that you carry out these necessary actions. But in removing a child predator from the streets of Seattle, are you not protecting families and other kids from future harm? So which one are you going to prioritize here? It's all just disingenuous. It's because they want you to vote for them based on feelings. They want you to support Democrats, for instance, based on your feelings and not your head. And that's how they win elections. That's how they continue to win elections. They try to pull at your heartstrings. And it's kind of sick, if I'm being honest, which I'm always honest on this show, as we discussed earlier. All right, we'll get to comments, our closing sanity check. I don't even know what our closing sanity check is, but Nicole chose it, so I'm sure it's good. First, Zach Abraham, in 2 days on Thursday, he's having a 2025 Know Your Risk live webinar. Bulwark Capital specializes in managing risk. So that's their number one focus, managing the risk associated with your retirement portfolio so you can have the retirement that you've dreamed of. So he's going to have a preview webinar. This is going to be a 2025 webinar where they're going to focus on the new administration, how it could impact retirement portfolios, the current state of the market, and an outlook for 2025. And they'll do a full reveal of how Bulwark is always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower cost, give your retirement as much upside as possible. So you can register for it right now for free. Totally free, knowyourriskradio.com. That's knowyourriskradio.com. You only get one retirement. Get a second opinion. Knowyourriskradio.com. Okay. Let's go into comments, shall we? Andy Silly with a $20 super chat. Can unDivided lead a drive to impeach Chris Rakedahl? Look, Andy, you can lead a drive to impeach Chris Rakedahl. If Chris Rakedahl continues to violate the parental Bill of Rights after this court ruling, that is absolutely grounds for a recall effort. 100%. And I am sure if somebody starts that recall effort, we would be happy to talk about it on the show. So we'll see what he's going to do. We are going to reach out to the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction after that conversation we had with Pete Serrano. And so we will see what they have to say. But I can't see a way around them enforcing the parental Bill of Rights in full effect. Matilda with a $5 super chat for my homies. I was trying to type in the live chat. I said, hey, homies, but I accidentally wrote homies. So now that's our thing. What's up, homies?
Oh, I like it. It's kind of cute.
My fellow homies. Matt Gilbert, happy Tuesday. Brandi killed it on Tommy Lahren today. It was so funny. I had to do Tommy Lahren this morning, and Nicole will tell you. Are you going to join us for comments, Nicole?
Sure.
I'm basically a disaster.
Apparently so am I today, but
in my mind, everything's organized, and that's how I can talk without scripts and blah, blah, blah. But then as a result, I only have enough capacity to organize this. So everything else around me is a disaster. I'm messy. I don't keep track of a schedule. Forgetful. So Nicole's been very good. If I don't have Nicole like CC'd on an email of something I'm supposed to do, I'm not showing up because I won't remember it. So Nicole tells me every day before we leave, hey, here's what you have tomorrow. Because she knows I don't know. She knows I don't look at my calendar. And she told me I had Tommy Lahren. And then I get up and I'm leaving home and she's like, hey, you've got Tommy Lahren at 10. And I'm like, oh, shoot.
No, you texted me at 9 something. You're like, oh, just leaving. Should be there soon. I was like, hope you're real soon.
And so I walk in the door 11 minutes before Tommy Lahren, wet hair, no makeup. I'm like, oh, shoot. But I get ready so fast. I was on Tommy Lahren in 11 minutes, full makeup, hair done, looking just fine. So that's another one of my my talents is I can do hair and makeup really quickly.
And can we say that they had some technical issues this morning?
They
which
did.
Made us
they were a
feel
little
very
delayed.
Human.
I always tell Nicole, whenever we have a tech issue, Nicole takes it very personal. And I get it. You know, you want everything to be perfect. I said, Nicole, when I was on TV and we had a staff of, 100, we still had tech issues. I mean, they have people full-time working on tech. We still had tech issues every single day, every single show. So I said, don't feel bad about it. And then Tommy Lahren had a tech issue. Yeah. And so I was like, see? So it makes you feel better. Hey, Elon Musk has even had tech issues on X when he tries to live stream.
Poor Daryl. I mean, we just have something for him every day that's going wrong. And every time he just sends one of those smiley faces, it's like, oh,
sad
why
face.
isn't it cooperating?
Sad face
Poor
emojis.
Daryl.
No, it's growing pains. We haven't had any tech issues during the show today. Just before.
Oh, that you're dealing with. I've got a lot going on over here.
Okay. Well, thanks for not putting that on me during the show.
Daryl's got a few texts.
Good times. Marksman Hitzman says, don't let the homies' rights be infringed. Fight these bad laws that don't protect families and common sense communities. Save the children and families in 2025. I agree. Matt says, Brandi, you thought Hakeem Jeffries is smart? Looks like the yoke's on you. DC Bindwell, no, those organizations need to go out of business because independent journalism is taking over. And that's my whole thing. If we had to survive by being propped up artificially by taxpayer dollars, then we don't deserve to survive as a podcast, as a company. I mean, the only way we survive is people pay $5 a month for the show, and we have advertisers who advertise with us because they get business from it, because we do well enough and reach enough people where they get business from it. The advertisers, even though they love us, they wouldn't advertise on our show if our show was crap and if our show wasn't doing well. So that's called business. It's called the free market. And in the free market, media organizations should not be propped up unless it's TVW, unless it's literally like C-SPAN where it's showing you what's happening on the floor of Congress or the floor of the state Senate or the state House, because that is a transparency thing for people. So it's ridiculous. And any newsroom that takes that money or this tax breaks should be ashamed of itself.
Well, I do think that there is something that needs to be reconfigured, because I do think part of that, the funding issue, is because they're not getting the advertising funding because people don't consume media the way they used to. They don't consume television the way they used to. They get it through streaming platforms, things like that. So they might need to find a different form of funding, whether you have to subscribe to watch a television newscast or whatever. I don't know, but they've got to refigure it. But you can't just take from taxpayers because yours is timing out, I guess, aging out of the system, because it does have to. I mean, they're not able to pay reporters anymore because people aren't advertising in TV anymore. They're finding other places to spend their money. So then they can't pay for good reporters. So then they can't. And then you have a poor product.
Then it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, so it's a vicious cycle. So I do get that it's not just crappy reporting. It is a whole cycle of what's happening with today's media as far as the way people consume it. And so they got to adjust.
Yeah, I might sneeze, so I'll let you know. Okay. I feel it coming on. What was I going to say?
But maybe make it more consumable via those streaming platforms and end up taking advertising dollars the way we take advertising dollars, that type of thing. I mean, they just got to be creative, but they're not. They're like, just give me money, just give me free money.
And you know this, that, you can, it's a totally different thing, type of advertising, for having a commercial in the middle of a newscast versus having me read and endorse your product, or having a personality driven show that endorses your product. Because people who watch this show, like, they're very loyal. So we have people who will specifically seek out our advertisers to do business with them because they advertise on our show. So there's a loyalty element. There's not that loyalty element when you're watching the 5 o'clock news and you just happen to see a commercial for a product. Like if you need a product like that, that might put that in your mind to call that company. But you don't have that loyalty where you're like, that's an advertiser for a show I like and I'm going to do business with them. And so you could have, like, let's say 10,000 people hear me advertise First Mark versus 1 million people who watch a passive ad for First Mark on TV. We would probably generate the same number of leads because there's that difference in loyalty-driven advertising. So part of that thing is media outlets don't have that.
Out.
Fox has figured that out. Yes.
And that's why they have the Mike Lindell and people like that, and all of their ads are the same. But people do subscribe. People do buy products advertised on Fox. Exclusively.
Yeah.
Because they're advertising with Fox. I do believe people do that. So they've figured it out. And so you just have to get creative, and you have to find a loyal audience. And I'm sorry if your audience isn't loyal. Then you better find a different audience.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Good comments per the usual, guys. Really engaged in some of the conversation around this. With that, I don't know. I'm going to get to our closing sanity check, but for me, it's going to be a complete surprise. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is Caroline Leavitt, who's the new White House press secretary. Very young, but I think so far she's doing a pretty good job. And as promised, another promise kept by Donald Trump, who said he would update us on what was going on with those drones in New Jersey.
And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones.
Ooh.
After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Oh, and not the aliens?
Not the aliens.
But the FAA had authorized some of them to be flown, and the FAA was out there like, nothing to see here, folks. So it must have been for some top secret sort of stuff.
Well, they actually said for some research. Whatever, research.
But
I don't expect to know everything.
That. Why didn't they say that then?
Exactly. Why didn't Biden just say,
drones.
We check with the FAA. We know every drone was connected to this, and everybody else was whatever they called it. But
I love that she made a big deal out of that, though. She's like,
I know.
First, this directly from the President of the United States. I kind of love that. So we'll see if she does a good job. But we'll call balls and strikes. I don't think Trump had very good press secretaries the first time around. Sean Spicer, that was a doozy. People thought Kayleigh McEnany was good. I didn't think she was that great. I didn't. I thought sometimes she was good, other times not so much. So we'll see how Caroline Leavitt does. Maybe I have a high bar for press secretaries.
Possibly.
Maybe I think I would make a good press secretary. I feel like I would.
I feel like you absolutely would.
I don't want to.
If I picked another career for you, that's what I would pick. Because I think it'd be real entertaining.
Oh, yeah. We'd have fun with it, for sure. So, and all the alien news I'd share up front. Alien news would lead every single White House press conference. All right. That has been our sanity check for today. That has been today's episode of Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving Common Sense a comeback. We appreciate every single one of you and your support of our mission and our movement. If you'd like to sign up to support the show for $5 a month and stick it to legacy media because we're not going to get the tax breaks that they are, you can sign up at undividedpod.com. Undividedpod, that's POD.com. Hoomies. It's my hoomies. Peace out, hoomies. Hoomie kind.
I hope that doesn't mean something we don't know.
Homie rights. I don't know.
Homie.
Do you care? Nothing else, Nicole?
I got nothing.
Okay.
I'm stressed out over here.
Don't be stressed out. Everything's fine. Daryl will fix it. Somebody said it can't. I had to read this comment quick. Somebody said it can't be worse than the blue screen of death. Remember our blue screen? That's what I mean. Remember the blue screen of death that kept us off the air? Oh, no, it's not a blue screen of death. Not a blue screen of death. Okay, bye now.
Bye now.